Some tragedies unfold in shadows, but Judy Garland's played out in the spotlight. At the height of her fame, she commanded millions at the box office, dined at Hollywood's finest establishments, and lived in mansions befitting silver screen royalty. Yet beneath the glittering surface of America's sweetheart lay a story so dark it would make her fictional roles seem tame by comparison. In today's episode, we share how this isn't just another tale of a fallen star. It's an exposé of how Hollywood's most powerful studio systematically destroyed its greatest asset, transforming a transcendent talent into a cautionary tale of fame's true cost. On a sweltering August afternoon in 1944, Judy Garland stood on MGM's most lavish soundstage, surrounded by $4.3 million worth of meticulously crafted period sets, equivalent to $71 million today, preparing to film the trolley song for Meet Me in St. Louis. And at just 22, she commanded a staggering $150,000 per picture, nearly $2.5 million in modern terms, making her Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's most bankable female star. Indeed, the studio had invested the equivalent of approximately $198 million today in crafting her image, and their return had been nothing short of astronomical. In her sprawling Bel Air mansion, Garland lived the life befitting Hollywood royalty. Her wardrobe alone, carefully curated by MGM's costume department, was valued at the equivalent of millions in 2025. And each evening she dined with Hollywood's elite at Romanoff's or Chasen's, the most luxurious establishments of the day. The public devoured every detail of her seemingly charmed existence, from her collection of rare perfumes to her custom-designed Cadillac. Yet behind the dazzling facade of America's sweetheart lay a darker truth. MGM's prized possession was, in reality, their most valuable prisoner. The studio's investment in their star meant controlling every aspect of her life, from her daily diet of chicken soup and black coffee to the pills that kept her performing through exhausting 18-hour days. Her contract, while lucrative, was a golden chain that bound her to an increasingly toxic system. The numbers told their own story. 5 doctors on MGM's payroll to monitor her weight, 3 full-time handlers to manage her schedule, and a weekly regimen of vitamins that cost the studio to maintain their star's grueling pace. Each film earned millions, but the human cost was mounting with every production. For the public, Judy Garland was the embodiment of Hollywood success. But the very talents that had elevated her to such heights, that crystal-clear voice, that innate ability to convey emotion, had made her too valuable to be treated as human. Thus the question wasn't if, but when, the facade would finally shatter. In the bitter Minnesota winter of 1924, a tiny girl with an extraordinary voice stepped onto the stage of her father's modest movie theater in Grand Rapids. Frances Ethel Gumm, who would later become Judy Garland, was just 2 years old, yet something remarkable happened when she began to sing Jingle Bells. The restless audience fell silent, transfixed by this child who performed with the soul of a seasoned artist. That night marked the beginning of both a brilliant career and a profound tragedy. The Gumm family lived a precarious existence, scraping by on the earnings from their small-town theatre and vaudeville performances. Frank and Ethel Gumm's 3 daughters, Mary Jane, Dorothy Virginia and little Frances, became the Gumm sisters, touring a dying vaudeville circuit in their weathered Studebaker. They drifted from one boarding house to another, while Ethel painstakingly crafted matching costumes for her girls, often sewing late into the night by candlelight to save on electricity. Yet beneath the family's struggling show business facade lay darker currents. Frank Gumm's secrets, whispered about in small-town gossip, forced them to abandon their Minnesota theatre and the relative stability it provided. They fled to Lancaster, California, where they purchased another small theatre with borrowed money. It was here that young Frances's extraordinary talent began drawing crowds who came specifically to see Baby Gumm perform between film showings. She would stand on a makeshift wooden box, her voice filling the theatre with an emotional depth that belied her tender years. Ethel Gumm, determined to mould her youngest daughter into a star, possessed an ambition that bordered on obsession. Voice lessons, dance classes, and endless rehearsals consumed young Frances's childhood. But it was Ethel's most devastating investment in her daughter's future that would cast the longest shadow. The pep pills she began giving Frances at age 10, obtained from a friendly local pharmacist who never questioned why a child needed such medication. These pills, prescribed to help the young performer maintain her energy through grueling schedules, planted the seeds of a dependency that would haunt her for life. Their nomadic existence left Frances with no true home beyond the stage. Early mornings were spent in drafty dance studios, afternoons in endless rehearsals, and evenings performing until her small body trembled with exhaustion. Yet she learned early that tears or complaints would be met with her mother's sharp reminder: the show must go on. The stage became both her refuge and her prison, a pattern that would define her entire life. By 1935, when 13-year-old Frances, now rechristened Judy Garland, caught the attention of MGM, she had already lived several lifetimes in show business. The studio contract appeared to be salvation, a chance to escape the hardscrabble existence of vaudeville. Indeed, Louis B. Mayer's offer seemed like the answer to the Gumm family's prayers. But no one could have predicted how this teenage girl's transformation from vaudeville performer to movie star would come at such a devastating personal cost. In 1935, 13-year-old Judy Garland signed with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, a moment that would forever alter the course of her life. Louis B. Mayer, the almighty head of MGM, saw potential in the young performer, even as he cruelly dubbed her "my little hunchback," and that fat little pig with pigtails behind closed doors. The studio system's ruthless machinery was about to transform this talented teenager into a manufactured version of America's sweetheart, though the cost would prove devastating. From the beginning, MGM's control was absolute. The studio placed Garland on a strict regimen of diet pills and amphetamines, a practice that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Her daily routine became a carousel of pep pills to get through grueling filming schedules, followed by sleeping pills to combat the insomnia they caused. The studio doctors readily supplied these medications to their young star, establishing a pattern of dependency that began when she was barely in her teens. Mayer's obsession with Garland's appearance became particularly cruel. The studio put her on a series of restrictive diets, monitoring every morsel she consumed. When she was caught eating a full meal, the reprimands were swift and harsh. Garland later recalled how the studio would serve her only a bowl of soup and a plate of lettuce, while other actors ate full meals, an experience that fostered deep-seated insecurities about her body image. Despite these torments, or perhaps channeling them, Garland's performances reached new heights of emotional resonance. Her portrayal of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz captured America's heart, while her rendition of Over the Rainbow became an anthem of hope for millions. Yet even as her star rose, the studio's grip tightened. Every aspect of her life fell under MGM's control, from her public appearances to her personal relationships. The toll of this existence soon became evident. By her late teens, Garland's dependence on studio-prescribed medications had evolved into a full-blown addiction. Between her punishing film schedule and the constant pressure to maintain the studio's impossible standards, she began experiencing the nervous exhaustion that would plague her later years. The same system that had promised to make her dreams come true was slowly but surely destroying her. As the 1940s dawned, Judy Garland had become one of MGM's most bankable stars. But success came at a terrible price. The studio had constructed their perfect leading lady, but in doing so they had begun to dismantle the vibrant young talent who had first walked through their gates. The making of a Hollywood legend was, in truth, the beginning of a tragic undoing. In July 1947, Hollywood was shaken by devastating news. Judy Garland, one of MGM's brightest stars, had attempted suicide by slashing with broken glass. This cry for help revealed the depths of despair behind the studio's glittering facade. Yet rather than marking the end of her troubles at MGM, it was merely the beginning of a 3-year spiral that would ultimately sever her connection to the studio that had shaped her life. The following year brought another crisis when MGM suspended Garland during the filming of The Barclays of Broadway. Her frequent absences and emotional struggles had become impossible to ignore, leading to her replacement by Ginger Rogers. The studio's publicity department carefully crafted press releases citing illness, but within Hollywood's inner circles, the truth about their troubled star was an open secret. 1949 marked an even steeper decline. During the production of Annie Get Your Gun, Garland's behavior became increasingly erratic. After numerous delays and difficult days on set, MGM was forced to remove her from the production, a decision that cost the studio dearly as they reshot her scenes with Betty Hutton. The strain of years of studio pressures, combined with her ongoing struggle with prescription medications, had reached a breaking point. The final chapter of Garland's MGM career came in 1950 when she was cast in Royal Wedding. Her performance in the early scenes made it clear that she could no longer maintain the punishing schedules demanded by the studio system. After replacing her in the production, MGM finally terminated her contract in September 1950, ending a relationship that had begun when she was just 13 years old. The split was complex, marking both a devastating professional loss and perhaps a necessary break from the system that had contributed to her decline. While her colleague Mickey Rooney would later dispute placing all blame on the studio for her struggles with substance abuse, there was no denying that MGM's practices, from their rigid control of her image to their use of medications to maintain impossible schedules, had taken a severe toll on their once brightest star. For Garland, the end of her MGM contract represented more than just a career change. It was the collapse of the only professional world she had ever known. The studio that had transformed a talented teenager into a global sensation had also played a significant role in her undoing. As the gates of MGM closed behind her for the last time, Judy Garland faced an uncertain future, carrying both the scars and the stellar talents that her years at the studio had fostered. After parting ways with MGM in 1950, Judy Garland proved her resilience with a remarkable second act. In 1951, she mounted a triumphant comeback at New York's Palace Theatre, where audiences discovered that the former movie star had evolved into an electrifying live performer. Her raw vulnerability on stage, combined with that unmistakable voice, created an almost mystical connection with her audiences. The pinnacle of this transformation came on the 23rd of April 1961 at Carnegie Hall. That evening, Garland delivered what would become known as the greatest night in show business history. The resulting album, Judy at Carnegie Hall, captured the magic of that extraordinary performance, spending 73 weeks on the Billboard charts and 13 weeks at #1. The 5 Grammy Awards it earned confirmed what her devoted audiences already knew. Garland was more than a movie star. She was an artist of rare and transcendent talent. Yet beneath these triumphs, the shadows of her past lingered. Financial troubles mounted as quickly as her accolades. Her television venture, The Judy Garland Show, ran for 26 episodes in 1963 to 1964, showcasing both her incredible talent and her increasing vulnerability. Each of her marriages, 5 in total, ended in divorce, and her attempts to break free from prescription drug dependency were repeatedly thwarted by the very pressures that had started the cycle in her youth. By the late 1960s, Garland's performances became increasingly unpredictable. While some nights still showcased her extraordinary talents, others found her struggling to complete shows. In June 1969, while staying at a rented house in Chelsea, London, with her 5th husband, Mickey Deans, Garland's long battle with prescription medications came to a tragic end. On June 22nd, at just 47 years old, she was found dead from an accidental overdose of barbiturates. The world mourned not just the loss of a great entertainer, but the culmination of a decades-long tragedy they had watched unfold. Approximately 20,000 people paid their respects at Frank E. Campbell Funeral Home in Manhattan. James Mason, who had co-starred with her in A Star is Born, delivered a moving eulogy that captured both her artistic genius and her human struggles. Her death marked the end of an era, forcing Hollywood to confront the dark legacy of its studio system and its treatment of young performers. Judy Garland's legacy endures not only through her immortal performances, from the timeless Over the Rainbow to her transcendent Night at Carnegie Hall, but also as a stark reminder of fame's true cost. Her journey from child star to Hollywood legend to concert phenomenon revealed both the heights of artistic achievement and the devastating price of early stardom. In the end, she left us with performances that continue to move audiences decades after her passing, and a story that forces us to question the very nature of fame and its toll on those who achieve it. Imagine you were raised in the golden age of Hollywood and grew up to be the dream of many a young starlet of the era, a movie star. Yet behind the cameras and adoring fans, you allegedly faced a daily nightmare, orchestrated by one of the industry's most powerful figures. This was reportedly the reality for 13-year-old Frances Gumm, who stepped onto MGM's sprawling lot in 1935 with chestnut curls and a voice that could make thunder pause. While America embraced her as Judy Garland, studio head Louis B. Mayer allegedly saw not a child to be protected, but a commodity to be shaped and controlled. Indeed, the girl whose voice would define a generation reportedly endured a shadow education in Hollywood's darkest classrooms, where lessons included body shame, chemical dependency, and the cruel understanding that her extraordinary talent made her not more valuable as a person, but more useful as a product. In today's episode of Old Money Allure, we share how, as the world marvelled at the teenager who could sing of hope beyond the rainbow, that same young woman was allegedly learning that studio contracts contained invisible clauses that claimed ownership not just of her performances, but of her humanity itself. Frances Ethel Gumm, known to the world as Judy Garland, allegedly entered the glittering fortress of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in September 1935, a 13-year-old prodigy with chestnut curls and a voice that could crack the heavens open. According to historical accounts, the daughter of vaudevillians Frank and Ethel Gumm arrived at the sprawling Culver City studio lot through sheer raw talent. Louis B. Mayer reportedly dispatched songwriter Burton Lane to watch her vaudeville act at the Orpheum Theatre. Her audition for MGM was purportedly brief but spectacular. As the young performer sang "Zing, Went the Strings of My Heart" and a Yiddish song called "Eli, Eli," enough to convince the studio executives that this child with the outsized voice warranted an immediate contract. The MGM empire, allegedly governed with firm authority by Louis B. Mayer, represented the pinnacle of Hollywood's golden age, a dream factory that transformed ordinary people into stars. Frances, newly rebranded as Judy, after a popular Hoagy Carmichael song, had been performing since the tender age of 2.5, when she reportedly enchanted audiences by singing Jingle Bells at her father's movie theatre in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. As the youngest of 3 sisters, known as the Gumm sisters, and later the Garland sisters, biographers suggest she had been encouraged onto stages by her mother Ethel, a frustrated vaudeville performer who recognized her youngest daughter's exceptional gift. Judy's early childhood was reportedly complicated by family challenges, including her father's rumored personal matters that may have contributed to the family relocating from Minnesota to California in 1926, when Judy was just 4 years old. The girl who would one day be immortalized as Dorothy Gale had allegedly experienced early rejection. Biographical accounts suggest her mother had considered terminating the pregnancy, potentially influencing Judy's later feelings of being unwanted, except when performing. By the time Mayer's talent scouts discovered her, Judy had already spent a decade in the demanding world of vaudeville, where some accounts suggest her mother had given her special energy boosters to maintain her vitality during performances. What Judy could not have known as she signed that first contract was that she was reportedly entering a system that some critics have described as prioritizing commercial interests over performer welfare. Louis B. Mayer, with his paternalistic demeanor, would allegedly become a complex figure in the young performer's life, wielding significant influence over her career trajectory and personal development. As Judy began her journey at MGM, she brought with her extraordinary talent, vulnerability, and a need for approval, qualities that some historians suggest made her particularly susceptible to the pressures of early stardom. The conditions were now established for what would allegedly become a challenging career journey spanning nearly 2 decades, a period during which the young performer, whose voice would become the soundtrack to American dreams, would reportedly face numerous personal and professional hardships behind the scenes of her public success. From the moment Judy Garland signed her MGM contract, Louis B. Mayer allegedly found her physical appearance inadequate for the glamorous standards of Hollywood's golden era. According to biographers, the studio chief reportedly nicknamed her "My Little Hunchback" due to her petite 4'11" frame and slight curvature of the spine, a label that some suggest affected her developing self-image. Mayer's apparent concern with transforming the teenager's appearance allegedly began immediately, as studio executives purportedly deemed her too ordinary and full-figured for the camera's unforgiving lens, despite her healthy adolescent frame. Historical accounts suggest the studio implemented a strict dietary regimen under Mayer's oversight, allegedly permitting only minimal nutrition and encouraging appetite control methods, with studio personnel reportedly monitoring her consumption. When Judy reportedly attempted to order a normal meal at the studio commissary, biographers claim it would be removed and replaced with her approved portions, potentially creating uncomfortable moments in front of her peers. This restrictive eating plan supposedly proved insufficient for the studio's standards, so Judy was allegedly introduced to special energy supplements that curbed hunger while maintaining stamina through demanding 14-hour workdays. To counter the sleeplessness these energy boosters reportedly caused, the studio doctors purportedly prescribed calming sleep aids, potentially creating a concerning cycle of chemical dependency in the young performer. Studio personnel would reportedly prepare the exhausted teenager each morning, handling her grooming and delivering her to the set by 6, in arrangements that some critics suggest may have sidestepped standard labor protections for minors. As she filmed her iconic role in The Wizard of Oz at age 16, Judy was allegedly already experiencing negative effects from these studio-sanctioned wellness methods, potentially establishing patterns that would follow her throughout adulthood. Despite becoming the star of MGM's Technicolor masterpiece, Judy was reportedly told she wasn't ideal for the role, with biographers suggesting Mayer initially attempted to borrow Shirley Temple from another studio before accepting Garland's casting. The studio allegedly fitted her with special garments to modify her appearance for the role, and her blue gingham dress was reportedly chosen to de-emphasize her developing figure. Wardrobe decisions that some suggest reflected broader control over her image. Beyond dietary management, MGM allegedly encouraged various cosmetic enhancements to Judy's appearance, modifications that some critics suggest communicated to the young performer that her natural appearance required improvement. The teenage girl who had wanted to sing was reportedly being transformed according to the studio's vision, with some biographers suggesting her physical well-being was secondary to creating a marketable image. As the chemical regimen purportedly continued and hunger allegedly persisted, Judy's relationship with body image reportedly became complicated, potentially contributing to health challenges in her adult years. MGM's demanding expectations allegedly transformed what might have been Judy's youthful development into a period of physical hardship and chemical coping mechanisms. While millions adored the girl next door, whose public image reportedly masked private struggles that some historians suggest originated in the studio's controversial management practices. Louis B. Mayer's alleged treatment of Judy Garland reportedly extended beyond physical appearance concerns, as biographers suggest he employed psychological methods that may have prioritized commercial interests over performer well-being. The studio chief allegedly positioned himself as a father figure to the teenager, whose own father was reportedly often traveling and sadly passed away when Judy was just 13, potentially creating a complex dynamic where her professional superior also represented a source of approval. According to accounts from historians, Mayer may have employed a management style that alternated between praising Judy's talent and criticizing her appearance and comportment, potentially creating emotional uncertainty in the young performer. The psychological challenges were reportedly compounded by limited social development opportunities, as Judy allegedly received education primarily on the studio lot instead of attending regular school, potentially restricting her peer relationships and typical teenage experiences. As her fame grew, particularly after The Wizard of Oz elevated her to international recognition, some accounts suggest studio oversight intensified, with reports that the young star was led to believe her career success depended on compliance with studio directives. When MGM reportedly faced budget constraints, some historians suggest it was performers like Judy who experienced intensified production demands, creating a potentially stressful working environment during her formative years. Studio executives allegedly reminded Judy about image considerations compared to contemporaries like Lana Turner and Elizabeth Taylor, potentially affecting her self-perception during these crucial developmental years. Her working environment was reportedly demanding, with multiple takes and long hours that might have created significant fatigue for a teenager, even with the enthusiasm she brought to her performances. Studio representatives allegedly maintained oversight of her public appearances and relationships, a practice some critics suggest ensured her public image remained aligned with MGM's commercial interests. According to some biographical accounts, Mayer would allegedly present Judy during studio meetings in ways that reinforced his authority, with some suggesting these interactions contained uncomfortable elements beneath their professional appearance. Years in this environment reportedly coincided with Judy developing emotional challenges, including sleep difficulties, confidence issues, and feelings of inadequacy, difficulties that some suggest persisted despite her professional success. By her late teens, Judy's emotional well-being had reportedly declined, with accounts suggesting she experienced anxiety and low moods, yet the studio's approach allegedly focused on chemical aids rather than addressing potential environmental factors. The glamorous premieres, publicity tours and radio appearances that comprised Judy's public image reportedly concealed private struggles. As some biographers suggest, the young star increasingly relied on prescribed remedies to manage emotional distress. MGM's publicity department allegedly worked to maintain Judy's wholesome public persona, while behind the scenes, some accounts suggest she was struggling with the significant demands of her professional environment. While audiences worldwide embraced the vibrant, talented performer on screen, biographers suggest the real Judy was potentially losing connection with her authentic self, beginning patterns that would reportedly continue long after leaving the studio system, that some critics argue prioritized her commercial value over her personal development. Behind the carefully crafted public image of Louis B. Mayer as a champion of wholesome entertainment, biographers have alleged concerning professional conduct with young women under his authority, with Judy Garland purportedly experiencing uncomfortable interactions. According to an unfinished memoir attributed to Garland, discovered decades later by biographer Gerald Clark, Mayer allegedly began making inappropriate gestures toward her when she was approximately 16 years old, around the time of The Wizard of Oz. The studio head's reported interactions allegedly involved seating the teenage Judy on his lap during meetings, where he would supposedly place his hands in inappropriate locations, claiming he was teaching her to sing from the heart. These meetings allegedly occurred in Mayer's office, a space where the young performer may have felt obligated to tolerate these reported interactions to maintain her professional standing at MGM. When Judy allegedly tried to address these reported behaviors, Biographers suggest Mayer responded emotionally, potentially using her need for approval against her natural instincts for personal boundaries. The reported uncomfortable interactions allegedly extended beyond Mayer himself, as Judy was supposedly approached in inappropriate ways by multiple MGM executives between the ages of 16 and 20, according to biographical accounts. In one alleged incident recounted in her attributed memoir materials, an unnamed studio executive supposedly made unwelcome advances toward Judy, and when she refused, reportedly responded with professional threats. The alleged inappropriate behaviours Judy reportedly experienced at MGM may have existed within a broader industry culture that some historians have characterised as disregarding appropriate professional boundaries with young female performers. Mayer's alleged conduct toward Judy reportedly occurred while simultaneously promoting her public image as wholesome and innocent, potentially creating a disconnect between her marketed persona and reported private experiences. The psychological impact of these alleged interactions may have compounded other reported challenges, potentially influencing her later relationships and trust in authority figures. Despite these alleged experiences, Judy reportedly maintained professional conduct towards studio executives, attending functions and publicity events as expected of a studio's leading performer. During her years at MGM, the entertainment industry allegedly lacked robust protections for young performers, with parents and guardians reportedly prioritizing career advancement over potential welfare concerns. The alleged uncomfortable interactions during her formative years potentially contributed to reported relationship difficulties that followed her through 5 marriages and various personal challenges. What makes these alleged situations particularly concerning is that they reportedly began when Judy was still legally a minor and occurred within a significant professional power imbalance. These alleged experiences remained largely undiscussed during Judy's lifetime, only emerging decades later through biographical research, revealing another dimension to the reported challenges faced by the beloved performer during her tragically shortened life. The challenges Judy Garland allegedly experienced at MGM reportedly continued to influence her life long after she departed the studio in 1950, with biographers suggesting these early experiences cast a shadow over her remaining 19 years. By the time MGM reportedly terminated her contract after 15 years, Judy was only 28 years old, yet allegedly showed signs of significant stress, reportedly dependent on prescribed remedies initially encouraged by the studio, emotionally exhausted and physically depleted by years of restrictive regimens. Her post-MGM career demonstrated remarkable artistic achievements, particularly her critically acclaimed performance in A Star is Born in 1954, but these triumphs were reportedly overshadowed by professional reliability concerns that biographers suggest stemmed from coping mechanisms developed during her studio years. The dependency issues that reportedly contributed to her passing at 47 allegedly originated during her MGM tenure, when certain substances were purportedly administered as part of her studio regimen, potentially establishing patterns that proved difficult to overcome despite reported rehabilitation efforts. Her relationship patterns, 5 marriages that ended in divorce, and apparent attraction to controlling personalities may reflect relationship templates established during her formative professional years, according to some psychological analyses. The public perception of Judy reportedly shifted over time, with the entertainment press showing limited understanding of how her professional challenges might have stemmed from institutional practices rather than personal shortcomings. Her attempts to rebuild her career were reportedly complicated by the very challenges biographers link to her studio experiences, creating what some describe as a difficult cycle where early professional experiences influenced later opportunities. While Louis B. Mayer reportedly maintained his industry standing until his passing in 1957, biographers note that Judy struggled on multiple fronts, highlighting industry dynamics that some critics suggest rewarded certain behaviours while overlooking performer welfare. Perhaps most remarkable in Judy's legacy is how her extraordinary talent reportedly persisted despite numerous obstacles, her voice maintaining its emotional power, and her performances their authentic connection despite her personal struggles. The same voice that allegedly first impressed Mayer in 1935 continued moving audiences decades later, most notably in her celebrated 1961 Carnegie Hall concert, demonstrating artistic resilience alongside reported personal challenges. Judy's historical significance extends beyond her artistic contributions, as her story represents what some consider an important case study in entertainment industry practices, raising questions about professional standards that remain relevant today. Her legacy endures notably in her status as a cultural icon for LGBTQ+ communities, with many drawn to her reported resilience in the face of societal expectations, creating a connection that transcended her lifetime. The phrase "friend of Dorothy," used as coded language in less inclusive times, linked Judy's famous role to communities that recognized in her reported struggles parallels to their own experiences of marginalization. Judy's daughter Liza Minnelli carried forward her mother's artistic legacy while reportedly experiencing her own personal challenges, suggesting to some observers how early experiences may influence subsequent generations. Decades after both Judy and Louis B. Mayer have passed, important questions remain about industry practices toward young performers, prompting ongoing examination of how the entertainment world balances commercial interests with appropriate support for the vulnerable talents whose gifts captivate global audiences. When you think of the name Judy Garland, glittering ruby slippers and rainbow ballads immediately come to mind. Yet her most revealing biography wasn't written in studio contracts or theatre marquees, but in the succession of homes she inhabited throughout her tumultuous life. From a modest Midwestern clapboard house to the most prestigious addresses in Holmby Hills, her residential evolution charts the meteoric rise of a talent who outgrew her surroundings at the same dizzying pace she conquered entertainment. And, as her fame expanded, so did her square footage, with each property acquisition representing another milestone in a career that demanded increasingly impressive surroundings. Therefore, in today's episode of Old Money Mansions, we walk through the doors of Judy Garland's 5 most significant homes, each telling a different chapter of Hollywood's most bittersweet success story. Before the glitz and glamour of Hollywood mansions, Judy Garland's story began in a modest white clapboard house at 2727 South Pokegama Avenue in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, where she was born Frances Ethel Gumm on June 10, 1922. This humble 2-story residence, built in the early 20th century, exemplifies traditional Midwestern architecture with its pitched roof, covered front porch, and symmetrical window arrangement that was typical of middle-class American homes of the period. Architectural historians classify the structure as an American 4-square variant, a practical design that maximized interior space while withstanding Minnesota's punishing winters, with features like double-hung windows, substantial roof overhangs, and a compact footprint that minimized heat loss. The house stood 2 blocks from the Mississippi River headwaters, in a respectable neighborhood of similar homes occupied by merchants, professionals, and small business owners who formed Grand Rapids' stable middle class. Inside, the original layout featured a central hallway flanked by formal living and dining rooms, with wooden floors, modest trimwork, and practical built-ins that reflected the functional design sensibilities of pre-Depression era residential architecture. The home's relatively simple design speaks to a time when even prosperous families like the Gumms, who owned the local movie theatre, opted for comfortable rather than ostentatious living quarters, with craftsmanship taking precedence over showiness. After decades of private ownership and varying degrees of alteration, the house was painstakingly restored to its 1920s appearance beginning in the 1990s, with historians carefully recreating period-appropriate fixtures, wall coverings and furnishings. Today, the building serves as the centerpiece of the Judy Garland Museum, where architectural preservationists have maintained original elements like the wooden banisters, window frames and decorative mouldings that young Frances would have touched daily. Museum curators have recreated the bedroom where Garland spent her earliest years, complete with a small wooden bed, floral wallpaper and a simple dresser that reflect the unpretentious surroundings of her childhood. The upstairs bathroom features the original clawfoot tub and pedestal sink, while curators have furnished Mr. Gumm's small study with the appropriate oak desk and leather chair where he would review theatrical booking contracts and manage the family's finances. The kitchen features restored cabinetry and appliances characteristic of the era, offering visitors a glimpse into domestic life before Garland's Hollywood transformation began. Beyond the house itself, the museum complex has expanded to include exhibition spaces housing Garland memorabilia, creating an architectural dialogue between her humble origins and later fame. This carefully preserved childhood home serves as the foundational chapter in Garland's residential story, representing the architectural baseline from which she would later commission and inhabit some of Hollywood's most noteworthy estates. As the Gumm family sought greater opportunities in the entertainment industry, they relocated to Lancaster, California, where they purchased a substantially larger residence that bridged Judy's transition from small-town life to the edges of Hollywood's orbit. The Lancaster house, a 7-bedroom, 4-bathroom property spanning 4,062 square feet, represented a significant architectural upgrade with its Spanish colonial revival influences, evident in the stucco exterior and terracotta roof tiles common to Southern California in the 1930s. Unlike the more modest clapboard structures typical of Lancaster's agricultural past, the Gumm residence stood out as one of the town's more substantial homes, reflecting the family's rising aspirations through architectural choices that aligned with contemporary California tastes. Frank Gumm specifically selected the property for its large basement, which he converted into a rehearsal space complete with a small stage, mirrors and rudimentary sound treatment where his daughters could practice their acts for hours without disturbing neighbours. Inside, the expanded floor plan provided ample space for the performing Gumm sisters, with a formal living room featuring a prominent fireplace flanked by built-in bookcases where the young Judy reportedly practiced her singing away from the bustling household. The dining room boasted a beamed ceiling and wrought iron-light fixtures typical of the Spanish Revival style, while large windows throughout the home allowed abundant California sunshine to illuminate interior spaces, a marked contrast to the more enclosed design of their Minnesota residence. Architectural details like arched doorways, decorative tile work, and hardwood floors reflected the regional design aesthetic of pre-war Southern California, offering the family a taste of the architectural sophistication they would later encounter in Hollywood's elite neighborhoods. The property featured expansive grounds with mature fruit trees and garden spaces, where Judy reportedly spent hours rehearsing dance routines, the landscaping demonstrating California's indoor-outdoor living philosophy that would later influence her preference for estates with significant gardens. A corner sunroom with terracotta tile flooring and panoramic windows served as an informal gathering spot where the Gumm sisters would entertain friends after school, the space designed to capture afternoon light and desert breezes through carefully positioned casement windows. Perhaps most importantly, the house sat in proximity to the movie theatre owned by Judy's father, creating a physical connection between the family's residence and their entertainment business that foreshadowed Garland's future integration into Hollywood's professional and social circles. During the family's Lancaster period, the home's relatively generous proportions allowed them to host informal performances and entertain industry connections, the architecture thus serving both domestic and professional functions. Over subsequent decades and through multiple owners, the Lancaster residence underwent numerous renovations that altered many original features, though the fundamental structure remained recognizable when the property appeared on the real estate market in 2017. The architectural evolution of this transitional home mirrors Garland's own transformation from Frances Gumm to the star who would later commission and inhabit some of Hollywood's most prestigious addresses. At the astonishingly young age of 16, Judy Garland and her mother commissioned renowned architect Wallace Neff to design a custom home at 1231 Stone Canyon Road in Bel Air, coinciding precisely with her career-defining casting as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Wallace Neff, recognized as one of California's most distinguished residential architects, crafted a two-story East Coast traditional-style residence that deliberately eschewed the Spanish colonial and Mediterranean influences dominating Los Angeles architecture of the period. The selection of Neff was particularly significant, as his client roster included Hollywood luminaries like Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and Charlie Chaplin, placing the teenage Garland alongside the industry's most established figures through their shared architectural patronage. This classically proportioned home spanned approximately 5,500 square feet and was situated on a nearly 2.7-acre lot, the substantial grounds creating a sense of country estate living within minutes of major film studios. The property's exterior featured a symmetrical facade with shuttered windows, dormer windows piercing the pitched roof, and a formal entry path leading to a front door framed by classical columns, architectural elements that evoked established East Coast wealth rather than nouveau riche Hollywood glamour. Neff specifically selected materials to create a sense of architectural permanence, using old-growth timber for structural elements, hand-fired bricks for chimneys and garden walls, and copper gutters and downspouts that would develop a distinguished patina over decades. Inside, Neff created formal yet comfortable spaces featuring dark hardwood floors lined with seagrass mats, crown mouldings, wainscoting, and multiple fireplaces that established an atmosphere of traditional elegance aligned with Garland's desire for a home conveying permanence and stability. Among the estate's most distinctive interior elements was a meticulously wainscoted formal dining room with 3 sets of French doors leading to the landscape yard, creating the seamless flow between indoor elegance and outdoor grandeur that would become a hallmark of luxurious California living. The heart of the home focused on a grand iron staircase that made an immediate impression upon entry, while private spaces included 5 bedrooms, with a primary suite boasting 2 dressing closets and a black marble fireplace that epitomized old Hollywood luxury. Beyond the main residence stood a writer's studio equipped with a wood-burning fireplace, offering creative sanctuary on grounds that featured rolling grass hills, a large brick-lined patio perfect for entertaining, and a kidney-shaped swimming pool with a sleek diving board. Landscape architect Thomas Church, who later gained fame for his influential California garden designs, created a series of outdoor rooms defined by mature sycamores, flowering shrubs, and strategic terracing that maximized the property's hillside setting. Neff's design represented a significant departure from the glamorous but often transient nature of many Hollywood residences, its architectural gravitas reflecting Garland's desire to establish herself as more than a passing celebrity despite her youth. As a proof to its enduring architectural value and historical significance, the estate sold for $11.1 million in July 2024, having been owned by Los Angeles Times heiress Stephanie Booth Murray since 2011. In the mid-1940s, Garland established a new family home at 8,850 Evenview Drive in the Hollywood Hills, with her husband, film and stage director Vincente Minnelli, and their daughter Lisa Minnelli, who was born while they resided at this address in 1946. The residence was designed by John Elgin Wolfe, the acclaimed architect of the stars, whose distinctive Hollywood Regency style blended classical elements with theatrical flair through a sophisticated vocabulary of Greco-Roman columns, mansard roofs, and oversized doors that created dramatic proportions worthy of the silver screen personalities who commissioned his work. Perched along a prestigious ridge overlooking the Sunset Strip, the property occupied one of the most coveted locations in the hills, where the combination of privacy, panoramic views, and proximity to studios made these addresses the preferred retreats for directors, producers and established stars seeking respite from public scrutiny. Built in 1941, the three-story, 5,000-square-foot mansion exemplified Woolf's signature approach, with its formal symmetry punctuated by unexpected flourishes, including a facade that balanced classical restraint with glimpses of glamorous interiors through strategically placed windows. The property's 5 bedrooms and 7.5 bathrooms offered spacious accommodations, while the sweeping views from multiple decks and patios showcased the glittering landscape of Los Angeles below, reinforcing the home's status as a hilltop retreat for Hollywood royalty. What distinguishes this residence architecturally are its hidden elements, including a secret bedroom tucked behind bookcases that is still referred to as the Judy Garland suite, the concealed spaces reflecting Woolf's understanding of celebrities' desire for privacy within their showcase homes. Woolf incorporated sophisticated soundproofing techniques throughout the residence, using double-wall construction, specialized insulation materials, and strategic room placement to create spaces where Garland could vocalize or Minnelli could play demonstration records of potential film scores without disturbing the household. Art Deco-inspired details adorned the interiors, with a front foyer opening onto an expansive great room featuring maple floors, floor-to-ceiling windows that captured abundant California light, and preserved original millwork that spoke to the home's architectural integrity. Woolf's design incorporated numerous built-ins and architectural flourishes, including ornate mouldings, detailed railings, and thoughtfully proportioned rooms that balanced grandeur with livability, the overall effect achieving the elegant yet comfortable atmosphere that defined his most successful works. The home featured a dedicated projection room with tiered seating, where Minnelli and Garland screened dailies and hosted intimate film premieres, the space designed with state-of-the-art acoustics, proper throw distances for projection, and comfortable seating that rivaled commercial theatres of the era. After Garland's departure, the property passed to television actor and comedian Wally Cox before being purchased by Sammy Davis Jr. in 1955, who transformed the outdoor area while preserving Woolf's architectural vision. Davis maintained the home's architectural character while adding complementary features, including a swimming pool, an 1,100-square-foot pool house with 2 bathrooms, and tropical landscaping with bamboo and banana leaf trees that created a lush backdrop for Hollywood gatherings. The architectural significance of this Woolf-designed residence has been recognized by subsequent owners who have maintained its distinctive Hollywood Regency features despite modernization, preserving a classic example of the style that defined luxury living for Hollywood's elite during its golden age. From 1952 to 1960, Judy Garland established her most enduring family residence at 144 South Mapleton Drive in Holmby Hills, a neighborhood that had already established itself as Los Angeles' most exclusive enclave through its large estates, mature landscaping, and strategic location between Beverly Hills and Bel Air. The Holmby Hills residence represented the pinnacle of Garland's real estate portfolio, situated on what was known as Millionaire's Mile, alongside neighbours that included studio executives, oil barons, and fellow performers who had achieved sufficient wealth and status to claim addresses in this most prestigious of Los Angeles districts. While specific architectural details remain limited due to the home's eventual demolition, period photographs suggest a sprawling colonial revival structure with symmetrical wings, dormer windows, and classical porticos that evoked established East Coast wealth rather than Hollywood extravagance. The residence likely featured the generous proportions, formal entry sequence, and designated entertaining spaces characteristic of upper-bracket Holmby Hills estates of the period, where architectural restraint was considered more sophisticated than ostentatious display. Given the home's construction period and neighborhood context, interiors would have included formal living and dining rooms with detailed millwork, wood-panelled studies, and service wings that accommodated household staff while keeping them discreetly separated from family and guest areas. Architectural historians note that Holmby Hills residences of this era typically featured extensive built-ins, coffered ceilings, and multiple fireplaces with elaborate surrounds, creating an atmosphere of permanent luxury that distinguished them from more transient Hollywood homes. The grounds almost certainly included formal gardens, expansive lawns, and mature specimen trees that provided privacy and created outdoor rooms for entertaining, the landscape architecture being as important as the residence itself in establishing the property's status. During Garland's 8-year occupancy, her longest in any single residence, her home provided stability for her 3 children, Liza, Lorna and Joey, its substantial size accommodating both family life and the entertainment industry gatherings that were essential to maintaining her professional connections. The property's eventual demolition in the decades following Garland's ownership reflects the evolution of Holmby Hills real estate, where even architecturally significant homes were frequently raised to accommodate ever larger mansions as land values in the neighborhood continued to escalate. The site's subsequent development and occupation by Werner Harrer erased the physical structure, but not the property's storied connection to Hollywood royalty, the address remaining among the most prestigious in Los Angeles and continuing to command premium values regardless of which structure occupies the land. Judy Garland's homes tell a story more revealing than any biography, from her modest beginnings in a Minnesota clapboard house to her grand Hollywood estates designed by architectural legends like Wallace Neff and John Elgin Wolfe. These residences chart her remarkable journey from Frances Gumm to international icon, each address marking a chapter in her complex life. The architectural progression mirrors her rising fame, while hidden features like soundproofed rooms and concealed wet bars reveal the private struggles behind her public persona. Despite owning some of Hollywood's most prestigious addresses, Garland never found the stability she sought. Her homes offered magnificent facades while providing carefully designed spaces for her to retreat from the pressures of stardom, architectural metaphors for the woman herself. Today, while some of these properties have been preserved as museums and others demolished for new development, they collectively form the physical timeline of an extraordinary talent whose voice filled theatres while she searched for a place that truly felt like home. And now, I'd love to see you in the comments. Which of Judy Garland's 5 homes would you most like to have visited? I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks again for joining another episode of Old Money Allure. Cheers, until the next one.